Hi, everyone. Ariana Friedlander here with Rosabella Consulting, and welcome to the Co-Creators in Conversation interview series, where we celebrate inspiring leaders who are challenging the status quo and creating economic value by caring about their people. Right now, I'm excited to be speaking with Erica Feucht, CEO of Pit Liquor. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's so great to have you on the series and to share your story. And to get started, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your role as CEO of Pit Liquor and what Pit Liquor does. I mean, I have some ideas based on the name. It's a catchy one. So why don't you tell us a little bit of your background?
Background, Pit Liquor is a natural deodorant made from whiskey and vodka. Our most popular form is the spray. We make it right here in Fort Collins, Colorado, at our warehouse, and we ship it from here as well. So our company effectively, we have the manufacturing, shipping, operations side, and then we also have the marketing side. And it's been really fun and interesting and also challenging at times to grow a company with both of those aspects at the same time. It's been in a lot of ways like growing two companies simultaneously that benefit from each other. My job here is to make sure that our company keeps the boat upright, that we keep capital coming in at the right rate, and that we're growing at the rate that we should. And that's been a very exciting journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I think that I relate to the whole, it feels like running more than one company when you have these different facets. It can be really like, it's hard when you're getting started to not want to go down those roads. And then as you're in the thick of it, it can be a little a little confusing and overwhelming.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering, like, when did you start Pit Liquor and what inspired you to start it? I know you shared before a little bit about, the impetus for going on this entrepreneurial journey was quite personal and those values you imbue in your company. So I'd love to share that story with listeners.
Sure. So a lot of people assume that it's like some drunk mistake. It wasn't. We came up with Pit Liquor. I work with my co-founder and husband. And that's been an interesting journey as well, working with your spouse. But he ended up inventing Pit Liquor for me when I was pregnant. So I hadn't been drinking for quite a while. And I was also very annoyed with deodorant in general because I'd spent about 2 years trying every natural deodorant in existence. And what was that? 2016, it has to have been. And I think, the years get all like muddled in my head when I look back. But basically, I gave up on natural deodorant and reverted back to traditional deodorant. And he was like so heartbroken. And he was like, think about the baby. And I was like, well, I'm also here and have been suffering with this problem as well. And he was like, fine, I'll come up with a solution that works for you. And he was like, well, in order to know that the product is safe, that whatever I make is safe, it has to be edible. So if I use that as a guideline, then I'm going to use whiskey because whiskey is alcohol and it kills bacteria. And then he's a materials engineer. So he just like spent a year down that rabbit hole and came out with this amazing deodorant. Actually, I think that was probably 2015 that he did all the work for it. And then our daughter was born at the end of 2016. And we started the company when she was about 9 months old. We started working on it, though, early in the year she was born. We figured we weren't sleeping much anyway. And we'd honestly just lost our dog. She passed away from old age. She was a Great Dane. And so a lot of physical work. And we were both kind of looking for something to sink all of that lost energy into. We're like, a company. That's the right choice. Why not just stay awake at night and make deodorant? Yeah, let's do that. So we did.
Oh, so interesting and fascinating too to hear that part of what gave you the drive to start your business was like a process of grieving.
Yeah.
My business is named in honor and memory of my grandmother. And so I relate to like that being part of my grieving journey was saying yes to Rosabella Consulting, because she's like my silent partner. And it just gives me this like strength to persevere because that's what she always did when she was around.
That's beautiful.
Really, thank you. Yeah. And that's really cool to hear that piece. I'm sorry to hear that you.
Okay. Grief can be transformative. And we, in many ways, our dog had been like our first child. And
right.
Yeah, we were sad when she left, but Yeah, we get to start something new.
And you consciously chose to break out on your own and leave your day jobs to start your business when your daughter was 9 months. Can you tell us a little bit about what was going on that made you want to say yes to taking that risk?
Yeah, so I had worked in jobs previously in publishing because I'm an editor by training and by experience, and a teacher. I have a lot of different things in my background, but it had gotten to where I'd been working like 90 plus hours a week, and I was like every waking minute I was working, and it wasn't good for me, and it wasn't going anywhere either. And so I left that job before having our baby, and I really wasn't working. And I felt kind of bad for it because I don't know, because I wanted to work, but I couldn't find anything that I was enjoying. And so I focused a lot on being a mom. And then at about that 9-month point with the baby, I was like, I really need something else to do that's going to make me feel like I've got some sort of balance, that I'm not like spinning my wheels. And I love being a mom, but I also felt like I was going to be a better mom if I had something else to put my creativity towards as well. And Jason's job was providing what we needed. And so I thought I could just work on it, and then we could just work together at night. So I worked on all the marketing during the day and the shipping. And then we would actually manufacture in the middle of the night, every night. And we did that for a long time, where we would just, because our daughter would wake up, and, if the kid's awake, then everybody's awake. So, at 2 a.m., we would wake up and manufacture deodorant, and then go to bed at about 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And then he'd be off at work by 8, and I would be working on marketing and do giveaways during her nap times. And, like I would tell everybody on our Facebook, fans page, like, as soon as my daughter takes a nap, you guys get free stuff. And so they were there, going, when is she going to nap? And I felt like I had some camaraderie, because I was not the only person looking forward to my child's nap.
Yes. And then when they stop, it's so discouraging.
Yeah. And she would sleep on me. I did a lot of like contact napping. So I would do like walk around the neighborhood with her in a carrier and do giveaways, and, sleep with her, have her sleeping on me as I'm like typing away on the computer. It felt good though, because I could use my brain for two things at once, which felt, I don't know, it helped me.
Yeah. And such the image of a mompreneur as well, right? That like, working on the business, doing these things while also having your daughter with you. And I understand that part of the values that guide Pit Liquor is, acknowledging the importance of family time. Can you tell us more about what that looks like in action there?
Yeah. So when we started the company and actually started hiring people, we did that because things got to where that balance of like that idyllic balance had totally gone away. So I was, we had more orders than I could fulfill in a day. So my daughter was holding my leg and crying while I was manufacturing and saying, I'll get to you in a minute. And I just stopped and looked at myself one day, and I was like, this isn't worth it. This is not the life that I signed up for. If I wanted to do this, I could go back into publishing. So I talked to Jason, my co-founder, and I was like, we need to hire someone, and we need that because I need balance to come back to my life. And so I was kind of the first person that I advocated for, but I had to reach sort of a breaking point of my own before I realized that I needed that advocacy. So we hired someone, and we lived like an hour outside of town, in the mountains. And this employee came to our house and manufactured and shipped from our house and took the packages to the post office on her way back to town. And it was wild. And it was just sort of, as we started hiring more people, they had, my dog is sick, I need to do this thing. And I was like, well, then you should take time off work to go be with your dog. Or, it's my daughter's birthday. And I was like, well, then go be with your daughter. Why are you here? This stuff can wait. And it continued, I think, because I saw myself in each person that came onto our team. And as we built more and more, I just realized how much I wanted people to work to live and not live to work, and to have their life in that balance. Because I think if you're doing a job that you love, and you come to work for something that you enjoy doing, that's great. And you should enjoy your job. It should be something that feeds your life while you're there, but it shouldn't eat you whole. Right. And I think a lot of the work structure in America eats people whole, especially moms. And I think there's a lot of disparity. We're seeing more stay-at-home dads and more dads that, take dadding seriously and work at the same time. But it's been something that we've, like, foregone conclusion, we've loaded this onto women and said, okay, women are going to be the people who raise children and they're going to work because women can do it all. But reality is no one can do it all. Yeah. And I think in order for people to feel any semblance of balance in the trenches of parenting, there has to be give, and the give has to come from the workplace. So that's if you want the talent that, like, I feel like we've hired very talented people, and if we want to retain them, we need to provide something that's going to make their life balanced and whole, instead of, making them feel bad for not giving us time. I never want an employee to miss a kid's baseball game or a soccer game or a birthday party or an important moment with their kids because they were working for me. That is something I personally couldn't live with.
That's so beautiful. And such a different approach to being an employer and a business owner, not wanting people to live for work, but for that work-life balance, and to recognize and honor the whole person that comes to your team. That makes such a difference. And especially, for those of us with young kids, it's so hard. It's so hard right now, especially, it's been even harder in the last 2 years, but
it has.
Even before that. How do you manage as a boss, as a leader, as the CEO, how do you manage meeting your expectations for deliverables for your team, and allowing that space for people to be a whole person and make family a priority?
It's that big friendly word, boundaries. And communication, because I think, if somebody comes to the team and they say, I need to take care of my family as well, but they don't spell out what that means. It means that they haven't taken the time to consider where they would like work to stop and they would like life to begin, and where they would like life to give way to work. And I need people to think about that and to also be very clear about it, so they can tell us, I'm on Friday, I want these hours for my family. And that means I've had to do that for myself and say, this is where I stop and where I begin. And I have some awesome people here who've really helped me in that process, who've said, hey, you're sort of bleeding everything all over the place and it's a mess. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It is messy. So I've had to do that for myself, and then recognize that I'm looking for that with other people. So I can say, give me your hours, update your calendar, tell me when you don't want me to call you. And if I send you an email at 2 a.m., don't respond at 2 a.m. I don't expect a response. I was just awake with a kid. And so I thought I would get some work done. And if you're awake with a kid at 2 a.m. and you write me, that's great. And if I'm awake at the same time, I'll write you back. But let's not shoehorn things in where they don't go.
So these are collective boundaries then, you're establishing your own boundaries. And it sounds like I'm hearing almost this pattern where it's like you push things to this edge, and then you see, oh my gosh, I'm at the edge, I need to hire help. And then you push things to this edge, and oh my gosh, I'm at this edge, I need boundaries. And then that's also something though that you're conveying to your team, tell me your boundaries. You're actively pursuing this information from your team.
And I could probably be more active with it, honestly. It's something that we need to put into actual policy, but our company is small enough that we're not quite there yet. So yeah, I think it's something that if we can put it into policy and make it part of onboarding, that would be a goal for me to have. So people start and you say, all right, welcome to the company. I need you to let me know what your contact boundaries are. And it's been fascinating hiring some people who come from really fast-paced corporate America who say, what? Everybody's telling me their boundaries. And I'm like, yep, and we're still going to get plenty done. And they're very, everybody who's on our team is very willing to hear that. And they're very, our team is awesome. Honestly, we work together really well, but it's been sort of that give take. And then some of us have had to say, okay, we need to step up our game in order to work at this faster pace, to behave like the company we want to be, but we can do that with boundaries. I think it's very interesting if you look at some of the studies that have been done where they find that companies that have, say, a 4-day work week are actually more productive than companies with a never-ending work week. And, you can't actually squeeze more out of people. You need to give them space to decompress, and then they can come back fresh. And I've seen that with myself. I'll make the most ridiculous mistakes when I'm tired, but I'm sitting there pushing myself because I think that that next extra ounce of me is going to produce something that I can't live without. And then I come back a week later and look at what I did and I go, I made so many mistakes. And if I had just gone home an hour early, I might have been better off,
Right. Yeah. And for my own work and, when I've worked with clients as well, I encourage this looking at the kind of cost to benefit ratio of the time you're expending on something, and to recognize like there's always this threshold where it's good enough. And then we push further and further and further, and we only make like slight incremental improvements, if even. But we can like, sometimes for me, the good enough can happen in a half an hour of, really deep concentrated work on something. And then I can spend, another hour on it and make minimal improvements. And so to just have that recognition of like, okay, I've gotten to that good enough threshold. And instead of pushing to try to like get it perfect or, keep massaging something, but it not being worth my time, when it gets to that level of, really kind of hitting the wall with it, or just not being in the zone, or not having the energy. Those are such important pieces of awareness that each of us as leaders can bring in to help other people be aware of, like, where's your good enough threshold in relation to the time you're spending on your work.
How do you help people measure that? Do you have any ways that you look for that in yourself?
I'm a huge fan of like tracking things. I'm a huge fan of journaling too. So time tracking, energy tracking. And I learned some of these techniques from one of my coaches, Jason Womack, where it's like, I would start to pay attention, and that was, time tracking was really eye-opening, especially as a writer as well. I blog a lot, I journal all the time. And so I would realize, like, when I tracked my time, that there was this point of, getting to, oh my gosh, that's not so great. Like I'm wasting a lot of time, and I was good enough at this point after, and it can be even 15 minutes. It can be an amazing, like, you can make amazing progress in that much time. And that's, thinking about what you're saying about the studies and, of how we are so much more productive when we don't just push and push and push and push. And I think back to, my year in 2016, I took a rigorous certification course. My business was like booming, and I wrote a book. And
that's a lot.
I did that all while not working like the traditional 40 hours every week.
So you did that to yourself?
I did that because I drew boundaries, right? Like you're describing, where it was like, I could actually get a lot done because I'd done these time tracking, like all of that work led into this hyper productive time where it was just like, I didn't get sucked down these rabbit holes all the time. It was just focused, intentional work. And then step away, be a mom, step away, go to the gym, step away, hang out with friends, right? Like cook, clean, all those things. So
that's really cool.
Thanks.
That's impressive. That's really impressive. I'm processing all that. That's a lot.
It is. And we can, like, there's other times too where it's like, oh wow, my high priority right now is to heal. Like that's been for me on a personal, professional level, there's been a lot of healing that I've had to do in the last few years. And so it's like, that takes a lot of time. And so it can be hard because there's those moments where it's like, gosh, I don't feel like I'm being productive, because I'm not being productive in the puritanical sense, right? Like of go, making something solid. But healing is its own effort, its own outcome. And I know that that's been part of your journey too.
Yes.
That there's been this element of, being an entrepreneur, there's pain involved, there's hurt.
Yeah. I feel like it's some constant healing, and it's learning how to look at the situation that you're in and recognize how you've been instrumental in creating it. And then saying to yourself, that means I can fix it. And that in itself is so healing, but you have to fully absorb it and say to yourself, all right, that means that none of this is out of my control, even though it all feels out of control. Because entrepreneurship feels so wildly uncontrollable. But you end up looking at it and saying, actually, the factors that are affecting me are completely within my control. And it's that moment of letting go. It's that when you feel like I had this like a couple weeks ago. We were in an incredible cash crunch. And I felt this feeling that, oh my gosh, if I don't give every ounce of my energy to the business, we're not going to make it. And one of the nights I was at work. I'd been here for, I don't know how many hours, long time. And I just realized that what I needed most was to go home and to stop. And I did. And it was that feeling of like, well, I'm not actually affecting, change toward the goal that I have, but I'm giving myself permission to make bigger changes tomorrow. And if I stay here all night and work all night, I'm not going to get very far.
Right.
Yeah.
I have goosebumps from you sharing that story, because I think it's so like you, so much of what you shared there, there's that awareness of like, how am I kind of complicit in what I say I don't want. And when it can be hard, like that's like a hard, uncomfortable truth to confront. And it can be empowering when we do, because when we can recognize we play a role in creating the things we don't want, then we recognize we have this power to do something about it.
Yes. I have one of my advisors that I go to a lot. Her name's Nancy Kepner. She told me, if you find that you're complaining a lot, then you need to step back. If you have a complaint, figure out how to turn it into a request. And it took me more than a month of thinking about that to be able to do it. And I'm still working on it, but I feel like it's been life-changing to say, okay, I'm complaining. And that means I need to figure out who, and it could be me, but who I need to make a really solid request from and what that is. And I was like, oh man. And then all of a sudden you find yourself not complaining because you've started to make the requests and things have started to change. And it's kind of crazy.
That's so powerful. And such a great, just simple saying to live by. I'm curious how you process that. Like, do you have methods for reflecting and introspection that help you be aware of, wow, I've been complaining about the same thing over and over again. Oh, what's going on here? How do I need to, deal with this? Like, what's another way to deal? What does that look like for you?
On my best days, I meditate, and that's really helpful. And that helps me. I sort of write my own mantras and work through them and let them evolve as I'm going through them. And it helps me get to the bottom of what I'm really struggling with an idea. Yeah. So I'm a very active meditator. I know a lot of people I don't do very well at that whole space and silence thing. Maybe in time I will. But right now,
can you describe what active meditation? Meditation, it is kind of like a medication, but what active meditation looks like? So
for me, it's like, I have a mala and it helps me walk through, like make sure I spend enough time on something, but I actually start with a phrase. So I'll say something like, I'm in control of my own life. And I'll say that to myself until I realize that where I'm stuck on it. And I'm like, it changes. And I'm like, I'm in control of these aspects of my life. And so it gets a little deeper and a little more specific. And then I realized that I'm actually coming up against an issue of my belief of my ability to control something. And so by the time I've reached and come full circle, I'm like, oh, I understand what I was actually struggling with this all along. And I can see how to change it. So that can be really instrumental for me. And then mindfulness. And I try to work on that with my business partner, where he and I will call each other on things and be like, hey, you're complaining a whole lot right now. Or, you're failing to see positives in a situation that you created, or, various things. And that's helpful as well. It can be maddening to work with somebody that you live with, but it's also, it's a true north right there.
Right. Well, and I think I'm realizing it's one of the things we struggle with in our society is holding each other accountable for behavior. And specifically, have been in conversations with some folks recently about emotional abuse. And how do we hold professionals accountable when they're exhibiting emotionally abusive behavior? We don't have a good model for that, right? And so and that's an extreme of what you're sharing, right? But that having that kind of relationship where you can be complaining and have someone mirror for you. I'm hearing a lot of complaining right now. Is its own method of holding accountable, like holding you accountable to the words and the behavior. And and what you truly want and the disconnect that can happen there.
Yeah. And having it come from someone who sees all aspects of you is, I mean, there's no escaping it, because if you're self-reporting, oh, this is how I did today, which is good. I mean, I self-reflect a lot too, but to self-report is very different from having somebody who's always there witnessing everything about your life that goes kind of in your own way. You should probably get out.
Right. Yeah. And I love hearing about the way you meditate and the practice that you use, that kind of anchoring with these affirmations. And it almost sounds like what happens as you repeat them over and over again, you have this emergence of deeper wisdom and insight.
Yeah. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. I love that. The way that you found that and made that work for you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is that like, we all need to find our own way. And, you know, as I like to say, we're in my work and with clients, is like, we need to learn to discern between the voice of our inner critic and the wisdom of our inner genius, because one will guide us out of fear and the other will guide us out of deeper wisdom. And the inner critic's loud. And like, it's so, you know, our inner critics have gotten, you know, the megaphone in our minds so much that we often can confuse that. Like, and just that story you shared earlier of, you know, being at the office really late and that thought of, I have to push through, I have to keep going, that inner critic voice, right? Of like, keep going. You got to figure this out now. It's going to be the end of everything if you don't. And then, you know, I wonder how your meditation practice had created a pathway for your inner genius to emerge in that moment and say, go home, get out of here. Okay.
Call this one in.
Right. Yeah. It's so powerful. We need those practices day in and day out so that they're there for us when we need them in those moments.
Yeah. Very true. It's so true. We're all in it together in a way. I feel like collectively as a world, we're sort of in a progressional movement, like together, even though, you know, we're not all working in the same team or the same office. We are all on this planet at the same time, experiencing collective, you know, thought and movement hopefully in a direction. It does seem that way. So
I agree totally. And to your point, and as you know, this series is called Co-Creators in Conversation. I, you know, wondering, like, I think that that's a skill we need to develop as part of this collective effort of humanity right now. And I'm curious what that looks like at Pit Liquor. What does co-creating look like there? Can you give us any examples of how you do that?
Yeah, there's so much co-creating here. So I think I'm going to step back and then answer your question. Yeah. As we were in our journey as entrepreneurs, I think as all entrepreneurs know, you do everything. And so you do finance and you do HR and you do marketing and you do the operations. You do literally everything. And that's how you begin. And then you start to hand things off. And as you hand things off, that really becomes the question. Like, I had somebody tell me that my company's growth was only going to be limited by my ability to hand things off to people. And they didn't mean my ability to find people to give it to. They meant my ability to let go. And so that challenged me to say, I need to find people that I 100% believe in, people that I know that if I hand this thing to them, they totally have it. And then I need to challenge myself to let them lead their area. And so for me, it's been bringing people onto the team and then allowing them to make some changes that, you know, maybe have been hard for me. One example that I can think of that's just super poignant to me right now. We hired our CMO and he was somebody I searched for a really long time. And I found a really awesome person. I really believe in him. He's got all the skills we need to get where we're going. And he came in and in his first week, he said, hey, so there's this project that you've got that you're working on and it needs to change. Like it's not actually going to get you where you're going, but it's a project that I had dreamt of for like 4 years. And so I was really, really married to it. And I asked him for some time and I said, I want to go home and think about this over the weekend. This is not something I, feel like I can lightly pull the plug on. And as I thought about it more and more, I realized that if I was going to hire this person who I completely believed in, and if the growth of the company was actually what I wanted, I had to sit there with myself and say, I truly believe this person is capable of leading us where we're going, and I'm going to let go. And we pulled the plug on the project.
Wow.
And then everything he's asked for since then, I'm like, well, you're not doing that. Like, you're not pulling this beloved project, so you can do whatever you want. Like, have, you've got free reign, basically. I mean, and he understands the company's needs and where we're going. We're in alignment. So as long as you create alignment and then you bring in people you trust, you need to let go of basically everything. And at the end, your company needs to be able to function without you telling people what to do, but instead listening and asking them, what do you think needs to happen? Aligned around this goal. And your job as CEO becomes setting the goal and creating the direction and, forging forward instead of, managing the details, because you can't move forward if you're stuck in the details, and that's not your job. So I feel like co-creation here looks like that. It also looks like the belief that anybody can do anything. Like, and I don't mean that in like there's no specialization here, but I mean that in a sense that a lot of us wear a lot of hats. And so somebody might come to the company with this skill set and this desire for things to do, but they also have this other area that they're really talented in and that they're really excited about, and the company's growing in that area. So you might join the company in operations and find that you're really excited about aspects of marketing, and there's room for that to happen. And eventually we have to make choices of which one we want to pick, but there's room for people to collaborate across departments and across levels within the company. I don't know.
Well, and those stories that you're sharing really illustrate an underlying sense of curiosity that you encourage as part of co-creating. That, I think a lot of founders and entrepreneurs and creators can relate to having had that one idea that they've held tightly and nurtured, and then to hit that point of realizing it's not what you thought it was. Is so hard and so uncomfortable. And especially to make yourself open to a new employee delivering that message, and to make yourself open to receiving it, is such a powerful part of co-creating. We're like, we can't have all the answers when we're co-creating. We have to trust that other people have knowledge we don't have, and we're bringing that forward, and we're letting that influence us. We're letting the direction or the steps we take be influenced by what other people know, again, with that end goal, that overarching vision in mind. It's not like we abandon that entirely. But the tactical and the big picture don't always align the way we think they are when we're in the thick of it ourselves. Bring people in and we get perspective. I
see it as my job anymore to mostly just look at the long-term goals and hold them up against whatever we're doing, instead of saying, well, I don't like this, it doesn't fit here, there, or whatever, but to be like, this is where we're going. Is this decision that we're making in line with that goal? And if it is, then we go. And if it isn't, then we modify, because we're all coalescing around the same thing. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Oh man, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and it's gone by so quickly. We're at time. I really appreciate.
I could keep going.
I know, right? I really appreciate the wisdom and insights and stories that you've shared. Thank you so much, Erica, and thank you to our listeners too. Really appreciate you tuning in today. And if there's just one thing that you've gained from this conversation, think about how you might take that into an action, right? Make a new idea or an insight, something that's actionable for you on your journey as a co-creator and leader, because that's, where the real power of these kinds of moments come from. So thank you for listening to Co-Creators in Conversation. Thank you, Erica, for joining us. And please subscribe if you want to get more updates.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here. This has been awesome.
Yeah, likewise. Take care.